At 72, I heard the most painful words of my life. "Dad, you're just a burden now." Who said that? My own son, the boy I raised, educated and loved unconditionally for 45 years. That sentence changed everything between us. But what happened next will surprise you. If you have children or are someone's child, you need to hear this story. Subscribe to the channel now. This lesson could transform your family. It all started when my wife passed away 2 years ago. After 50 years together, I found myself alone for the first time in my life. I thought my children would support me through this difficult time, but I was wrong. What I discovered about family, love, and self-worth in those dark months made me question everything I believed. My son's words still echo in my head, but today they have a completely different meaning. Maria and I were married for 50 years. She was my best friend, my companion, my reason for living. When cancer took her, I felt as if a part of me had died with her. For the first time at 72, I was home alone, unsure of how to cook properly, how to manage the bills, or how to simply live without her. In the first months after the funeral, my 2 sons, Roberto and Carlos, stopped by frequently. They brought food, helped with the housework, and kept me company. I was grateful to have raised such loving children. "Dad, don't worry, we'll take care of you," Roberto always said. But little by little, the visits dwindled. Roberto, 45, was always busy with work and family. Carlos, 42, always had some commitment. I understood. They had their own lives, their own responsibilities. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. It was then that I began to feel the true weight of loneliness. The nights were the worst. Sitting in the armchair where Maria used to knit, staring at the television without really watching anything. The house that had once been full of life and conversation was now just silence and memories. One day, I tried to cook and ended up burning the pan. The smoke set off the fire alarm and the neighbors called the fire department. When Roberto heard about the incident, he came running. "Dad, this can't go on like this. You can't be alone." It was the first time anyone had questioned my abilities. I'd always been an independent man, worked as a mechanic for 40 years, raised 2 children, and maintained a home. And Roberto started showing up more often, but it wasn't the same warmth as before. He came with a mission, to convince me that I needed professional help. He brought pamphlets for nursing homes, talked about caregivers, and suggested I sell the house. "Father, this house is too big for you. There are stairs, there's a yard to tend. It's dangerous." But that house was my life. It was where I raised my children, where I lived with Maria, where every corner held a memory. How could he suggest I simply abandon it all? Carlos appeared less often, but when he did, he supported his brother's ideas. "Dad, Roberto's right, we worry about you here alone." But I realized their concern was different. It wasn't care, it was inconvenience. One day, Roberto arrived with a proposal that shocked me. "Dad, I found an excellent nursing home. It has 24-hour nursing, activities for the elderly, you'll make friends." When I declined, he sighed heavily. "Dad, you're being stubborn. Can't you see you're making things difficult for everyone?" Making it difficult for whom? I paid my bills, took care of my house, and didn't ask anyone for anything. The only problem was that they felt obligated to visit me, and this obligation was becoming a burden for them. I started noticing that when I called Roberto, he was always busy. "Dad, I'm in a meeting." "Dad, the kids are messing around." "Dad, can I call you later?" But that later rarely came. Carlos was even worse. He simply stopped answering my calls. Then something happened that made me understand how my children really saw me. It was my granddaughter's birthday, Roberto's daughter. For 15 years, I never missed her birthday. I always brought gifts, played games, and was always the grandfather present. But that year, no one told me about the party. I found out by chance when a neighbor mentioned seeing a lot of activity at Roberto's house over the weekend. When I asked him, his response was cold. "Oh, Dad, it was just a small thing, a very close family." A close family that didn't include his grandfather. Being excluded from the party was a turning point. I realized I had become a problem in my children's lives. I was no longer the beloved father, but the old nuisance who needed attention. I decided to take a step back and stop calling so much, stop asking for visits. To my surprise, they didn't even notice. I spent 2 weeks without speaking to either of them. No phone calls, no visits, no, "How are you, Dad?" That's when reality hit me. They were happy I wasn't there. When Roberto finally showed up, it was only because an aunt had asked about me. "Dad, Aunt Clara was worried because you weren't answering her phone." He didn't ask how I was or if I needed anything. It was just a mandatory checkup. It was at that meeting that everything exploded. I was tired of pretending everything was fine, tired of being treated like an object that needed to be managed. "Roberto, I feel like you don't want me around anymore," I said with all the honesty I could muster. His answer tore me apart. "Dad, I'll be honest with you. Ever since Mom died, you've become a burden to us. We have our own families, our own problems, and it's hard having to take care of you too." "Take care of me?" I asked incredulously. "I didn't ask you to take care of me. I just wanted to have my children around." He shook his head impatiently. "Dad, you don't understand. You call every day complaining about being lonely, wanting us to visit. This is a lot of work." Work. I had become work for my own children, the man who worked 2 jobs to pay for their college tuition, who sold his car to buy school supplies, who stayed up nights caring for them when they were sick, was now work. And then came the words that marked the end of it all. "Dad, let me be very clear. You're just a burden now. We don't have the emotional or financial resources to take care of you. That's why we're insisting on the nursing home." Burden. The word echoed in my head for days. A burden is something heavy you carry against your will. That's how my son saw me. Not as a father, not as a person, but as an unwanted weight in his life. That night, alone in my silent house, I cried like I hadn't cried since Maria's funeral. It wasn't just sadness, it was a different kind of pain. It was the pain of discovering that everything you believed about family, about love, about the value of life, was an illusion. I looked at the photos on the wall. Roberto at 5, in my lap, smiling. Carlos taking his first steps, the 2 of them at their graduation. Weddings, where I cried with pride. Were those moments lies? Had I raised 2 strangers who merely tolerated my existence? I spent days without leaving the house, without eating properly, without the desire to do anything. What was the point of continuing to live if my own family considered me a burden? Maria always said that our greatest wealth was our children. But what kind of wealth abandons you when you need it most? It was my neighbor, Donna Eleanor, who saved me from this spiral of self-pity. She knocked on my door because she noticed I hadn't picked up the newspaper in days. "Mr. João, are you okay?" When she saw the state I was in, she insisted on coming in. Donna Eleanor, a widow for 15 years, sat me down and made me some coffee. "Tell me what's going on." And I told her everything, about the loneliness, about my children, about feeling like a burden. She listened in silence, nodding her head. When I finished speaking, she said something that changed my perspective. "Mr. João, you are giving too much power to your children's words. They may have forgotten how valuable you are, but that doesn't mean you have lost that value." "What do you mean, Mrs. Elena?" She smiled. "You raised 2 children, worked your entire life, and were a devoted husband. That doesn't change because they're being ungrateful. The problem isn't that you're a burden. The problem is that they've forgotten what gratitude is." Donna Elena's words planted a seed in my head. Maybe the problem wasn't that I was old and dependent. Maybe the problem was that I raised children who didn't understand the true value of family. But it made me wonder, where did I go wrong in raising them? I started remembering our family dynamics when they were children. Maria and I always did everything for the boys. They wanted a bike, we bought it. They needed money for a trip, we gave it. They wanted to go to private school. We sacrificed ourselves to pay for it. Perhaps we gave too much and demanded too little in return. They never had to worry about us, never had to care in return, never learned that family is a two-way street. It was always us taking care of them, never them taking care of us. But that didn't justify abandoning them. It didn't justify calling me a burden. Even if I'd made a mistake in their upbringing, I deserved respect for what I'd done for them over the decades. I deserved to be treated with dignity in my final years. It was then that I decided to do something I never thought I would. Stop being emotionally dependent on my children. If they saw me as a burden, I would stop being one. I would no longer call for visits. I would no longer complain about being lonely. I would no longer expect anything from them. But at the same time, I decided to rebuild my life without them. At 72, it was time to learn to live for myself. I started small. I learned to cook simple dishes by watching YouTube videos. I figured out how to use delivery apps when I didn't want to cook. Donna Elena introduced me to a group of elderly people who gathered in a nearby square every morning to walk. At first, I felt strange. I hadn't made any new friends in decades, but these people welcomed me with genuine warmth. Mr. Antonio, a widower for 10 years, became my best friend. Mrs. Carmen, who had lived alone for 20 years, taught me that independence in old age is possible. Mr. Pedro, a former engineer like me, a former mechanic, showed me that our experience still had value. In the following months, my life changed completely. The group in the square became my new family. We went for walks, played dominoes, and had barbecues. For the first time since Maria's death, I actually laughed again. It took Roberto 3 months to notice the change. When he finally came home, he was surprised to find me dressed up, smiling, busy organizing photos to show my friends. "Dad, you look different." Yes, I was different. I was alive again. "How are things?" he asked with that formal tone our relationship had acquired. "They're going well," I replied simply. I didn't elaborate, I didn't complain, I didn't ask for anything. He was visibly disconcerted by my emotional independence. Carlos also noticed the change when he came to visit me the following month. I was leaving to meet friends when he arrived. "Dad, are you going out? Do you want me to wait?" "No need," I replied. "If you want to talk, we can schedule another time." The dynamic had completely changed. Before, I'd reorganize myself for any of their visits. I'd cancel appointments, change plans, make myself available. Now my life had its own routine, and they'd have to fit into it if they wanted to participate. I realized they didn't know how to deal with this new version of me. They were used to their dependent, needy, attention-hungry father. Now they found a man with his own life, his own friends, his own joy. One day, Roberto called me asking if I needed anything from the supermarket. "Thanks, but I don't need it. I've already done my shopping." "Oh, okay then." He hung up, confused. He was offering help out of obligation, and I wasn't accepting it out of independence. The turning point came when Roberto showed up at my house one afternoon with the same old proposal, a nursing home. But this time, my response was different. "Roberto, I'm not going to a nursing home because I don't need to. I'm doing just fine here." "But Dad, who will take care of you if something happens?" The question revealed a mindset. He could only see me as someone who needed to be taken care of, not as someone who could still live fully. "Roberto," she said, looking into his eyes, "for 45 years I took care of you. I took you to the doctor when you were sick. I paid for your schooling. I comforted you when you were sad. Now you think I'm incapable of taking care of myself." He was silent. I continued. "You called me a burden, son. Those words hurt me deeply, but they also made me realize something important. I am only a burden if I allow myself to be, and I won't allow it anymore." "Dad, I didn't mean to." He tried to explain, but I cut him off. "You meant exactly what you said, and that's okay. You have the right to feel like I'm a burden, but I have the right to refuse to be treated like one." I explained to him how my life had changed, the friends I made, the activities I participated in, the joy I had rediscovered. "I no longer need you to visit me out of obligation. I no longer need your attention to feel valued." Roberto looked shocked. "Dad, are you mad at us?" "I'm not mad," I replied honestly. "I'm disappointed, but I'm also grateful. You showed me that I needed to learn to live alone, and I did." Over the next few weeks, both Roberto and Carlos began calling more frequently, but it was different now. They seemed uncertain, as if they'd lost something and weren't sure what. I responded politely, but without the desperate need of before. If this part of the story touched your heart, please like it and share it with someone who needs to understand the value of a life well lived. We all deserve dignity, no matter our age. One day, Roberto showed up at home and did something he hadn't done in years. He asked about my life. "Dad, tell me about these friends of yours." It was no longer the tone of someone fulfilling an obligation. It was genuine curiosity. I told him about Mr. Antonio, who was learning to use a smartphone at 75, about Mrs. Carmen, who had gone back to school and was taking a crafts course, about our plans to take a trip to the beach next month. "Trip?" Roberto looked surprised. "You're traveling alone?" "With my friends," I corrected. "We're all responsible adults." For a moment, I saw a different gleam in his eyes. Maybe it was pride. The trip to the beach was a turning point. For the first time in decades, I felt truly free. 5 seniors enjoying life, making friends at the hotel, participating in activities, laughing until their stomachs hurt. I posted some photos in a family WhatsApp group. My children's reaction was interesting. Carlos said, "Dad, that's so cool. You look so happy." Roberto was more direct. "Dad, can I talk to you when I get back?" There was something different in his tone, a humility that hadn't been there before. When I returned from my trip, Roberto came to visit me with his wife and children. They hadn't brought the kids to see me in months. "Dad, I wanted to apologize," he said in front of the whole family, "for what I said, for the way I treated you." His words moved me, but I had learned not to be swayed by words alone. "Roberto, I appreciate the apology, but more important than asking for forgiveness is changing your behavior." He nodded. "Dad, I want you to know that I really admire what you've done. At 72, rebuilding your life, making new friends, finding happiness. That shows a strength I don't know I had." It was ironic. When I needed them, I was seen as weak and dependent. When I proved I didn't, I was seen as strong and admirable. But perhaps that was the lesson. Our worth doesn't depend on others' need for us. Carlos also came to talk to me separately. "Dad, I realized that for years you were the center of our family. When Mum died, we didn't know how to deal with the void, and we ended up blaming you for being alive when she was no longer." His honesty surprised me. It was a perspective I hadn't considered. Perhaps they were truly coping poorly with their grief and projecting their own emotional difficulties onto me. "Son," I said to Carlos, "I understand it was hard for you too, but instead of uniting in our grief, you pushed me away. Instead of creating a new family dynamic, you tried to put me on a shelf." From that day on, our encounters gradually began to change. They began to see me not as a liability, but as a person. They asked about my friends, took an interest in my plans, and respected my independence. Months later, something happened that perfectly symbolized the change in our relationship. It was my 73rd birthday, and I had planned to celebrate with my friends from the square. I hadn't even told my children about my plans. Roberto called me the day before. "Dad, what are you doing for your birthday?" When I told him about lunch with friends, he asked, "Can we join? We'd like to meet these important people in your life." It was the first time in years that they asked to be part of my life, instead of trying to fit me into theirs. The lunch was wonderful. My friends welcomed my children warmly, and they were genuinely impressed by the quality of the people around me. Mr. Antonio, with the wisdom of 75 years, said something that marked the day. "Roberto, your father is an inspiration to all of us. He taught us that starting over has no age limit. You are lucky to have a father like that." I saw something in my children's eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Pride. They were proud of me, not as one would be. Proud of a duty fulfilled, but as one would be proud of a genuine achievement. That night, after everyone left, Roberto stayed to talk to me. "Father, I want you to know that today I understood something. When I called you a burden, I was only seeing what I thought you needed from us. I didn't see all that you still had to give." "And what do I have to give?" I asked curiously. "Experience, wisdom, history. Your friends speak so fondly of you. They see what we fail to see. You are not someone who needs to be taken care of. You are someone who still has much to live and teach." Carlos, who had been silent, added, "Dad, for years we treated you as if your life had ended when Mom died. But you showed us that she simply changed. You found a new way to be happy." It was true. I had found a new version of myself. I was no longer the devoted husband, the providing father. Now I was the loyal friend, the adventurous companion, the man who discovered that 72 years could be the beginning of something new, not the end of something old. My relationship with my children has never been the same. It's gotten better. We didn't return to the previous dynamic because it no longer worked. We created something new, based on mutual respect and healthy independence. Today, 2 years after that terrible day when I was called a burden, I can say I'm grateful to have heard those words. They forced me to question who I was and who I wanted to be in my final years. I discovered that the real tragedy isn't growing old. The real tragedy is believing that growing old means stopping living. For months, I behaved as if my life had ended when Maria died, but she had simply changed. My friends from the square have become my new chosen family. People who value me for who I am today, not for who I was in the past. People who see potential in me, not just needs. People who celebrate my vitality instead of tolerating my existence. Roberto and Carlos are now a healthy part of my life. They visit me because they want to, not because they have to. They ask about my plans because they're genuinely interested, not to control me. They respect my decisions because they recognize my capabilities. Last week, Roberto asked me a question that revealed how much our relationship had changed. "Dad, what do you think about me quitting my job to start my own business?" He was asking for my opinion, valuing my experience. I was once again being consulted, not just informed. Carlos introduced a new element to our dynamic. He started bringing his children along for Sunday walks with me, not because he needed a babysitter, but because he wanted his grandchildren to get to know their grandfather better. The children loved the stories I tell and the energy I discovered I possess. I learned that dignity in old age isn't something others give us. It's something we build through our choices. When I chose to stop accepting crumbs of attention, when I chose to build a full life independent of my children's approval, I regained my dignity. I also learned that true family isn't defined solely by blood, Dona Elena, seu Antonio, Dona Carmen, seu Pedro. These people chose to love and value me. Sometimes the family we create is stronger than the family we were born into. At 74 today, I have more plans for the future than I did at 72. I'm going to learn to swim next week. Mr. Antonio and I are planning a bus trip to see the south of the country. Mrs. Carmen wants to teach me how to make crafts. Life didn't end when Maria died. Life didn't end when my children abandoned me emotionally. Life doesn't end as long as we choose to live fully. Age is just a number. What defines our vitality are our daily choices. If you've made it this far, I want you to understand one fundamental thing. You are never a burden when you're living your life with dignity and purpose. No matter your age, no matter your limitations, no matter what others may say, the greatest lesson I learned was that self-love isn't selfish, it's a necessity. When we learn to value ourselves, we teach others to value us too. When we build a fulfilling life, we attract people who celebrate our existence. If you're a senior feeling useless or abandoned, know that your story isn't over. There are people waiting to meet you, experiences waiting to be shared, joys waiting to be discovered. Your age isn't a limitation, it's a credential. If you have elderly parents, remember, they are not problems to be solved. They are people to be loved and respected. Physical dependence does not negate human dignity. Care should come from love, not obligation. A true family is built every day through conscious choices of love, respect, and mutual appreciation. It's not about who owes what to whom. It's about who chooses to be present in whose lives with joy and genuineness. Today, when I remember the words, "You're just a burden now," I smile. They were the starting point for me to discover that I am much more than... And that I am a 74-year-old man full of life, surrounded by people who truly love me, with plans for the future and gratitude for the present. If this story touched your soul and made you reflect on family, dignity, and the value of a full life at any age, subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. We all deserve to be valued, respected, and loved, especially by ourselves.